Why don't you then take it away and tell us that story? Tell us what happened.
As a result of a number of introductions, I met a couple of guys in the US, and I entered into a partnership with their American organization to open up the United Kingdom with a range of consumer products. Now, they had been phenomenally successful in the US. And the agreement was that the American organization would supply product and management support and training during the initial period. And that would be for about a year. And I would supply finance, premises, and I would recruit staff, and I would run the organization. Now, I was cognizant of what was pretty much an outstanding track record by the American organization. And I felt that with their 1 year of management implant into the UK, it would be sufficient to build a viable enterprise. Now, in addition to their couple of management implants, they also recommended a couple of senior people which they had come across in the UK and who they'd been associated with earlier. So the amount of money that was invested was significant. Whilst I don't really want to go into the absolute sum, it's some years ago, so one would have to adjust for inflation. But suffice to say that the business required both bank finance as well as my personal finance. So it was putting my own asset base at risk. So we set out, and whilst the American organization provided key staff, and the key staff, we're talking about two people at vice president sales level, one vice president sales and one a trainer, I had to cover their out-of-pocket expenses, which is on our account. And we set about building the UK sales organization. On the surface, this appeared to be an enterprise with potential. Good track record, reasonable products, help from the American organization.
It sounds like it. I mean, it's not, just listening to it, I think, God, what could go wrong here?
Well, you see, sales revenue, the growth in sales revenue was incredibly slow, and it became fairly transparent that the UK market was fundamentally different to the US market. And the US team had great difficulty in assimilating into local conditions. We're missing sales forecasts, and missing them by quite a significant margin. Now, the other thing which I didn't mention before, as part of the agreement, I was required and I agreed to fund a significant level of inventory in the UK. I had a warehouse full of product, a sales forecast which showed that inventory would be consumed at quite a respectable rate, but we missed the sales forecast. So what was happening now, that business was hemorrhaging cash, and hemorrhaging cash at a very, very significant rate.
That sounds painful.
And I think, once we started facing up to the fact that, I think what happened, I placed a great deal of reliance on the American organization, the two American staff that were effectively implants into our organization, and also on the people that the American organization, two Brits, who the American organization recommended. And none of these guys were delivering. So part of me was saying it was only going to be a matter of time before the UK operation would see accelerating growth and we'd move into profit. Now, it's a high-grade gross margin range of products, so the world would become a wonderful place. But on the other side of the coin, my intuition was saying, well, this is not going to happen. My gut feel was saying, these guys, A, don't understand the UK. They have a very significant level of influence over the marketed decisions. The two guys which the Americans had actually recommended were very aligned to the American model, despite the fact that it wasn't working. I felt that I was a little bit out on a limb. Now, what I thought that I could rely on going into this enterprise was my corporate experience, my corporate management experience, which I thought that I could rely on my corporate management experience, which, what was significant and was highly successful. But after 9 to 10 months, the realization the business model that was being attempted was not going to work. Our warehouse was full of stock, and the US implant team were about to return to the US, and the two UK guys decided they wanted to go somewhere else. And then the US organization came over for a review, and they then effectively washed their hands of any responsibility. So I continued to push into the second year with our own team, who had made significant changes to the business model, but honestly, we didn't have the financial runway to recover. End of story.
Got it.
End of story. We didn't recover. We had to close the operation. No one other than myself lost money. but I was very close to bankruptcy. And I lost my house in the process. I lost whatever assets that I had. The bank took those. But obviously, I recovered over time. But that was kind of looking back, of course, it was a disastrous time, a very difficult time. Did I learn lessons from it? Indeed, I did.
Why don't we review those? What did you learn? Because, boy, when I look at it, it looks like a lot of stuff seemed like it was in place. But, one of the things clearly is that same product, different market, that is hard to anticipate.
Indeed. I think there are basically 3 points. If you're going to go into a sector or an industry that's unfamiliar to you, on the basis that you believe your management skills, which have been proven elsewhere, are transferable, you should have done your homework and find a way of getting hands-on exposure to a new business model and a new business environment before you commit financial investment. Absolutely essential. I did not do that. I took the word of the American organization that their model was transferable, and I didn't check it.
Okay, so that's lesson number one.
Lesson number one. Second, number two, if you're going to enter into a commercial agreement with someone who allegedly has the product and the experience, you need to make sure that they have some skin in the game. The UK company was, for all intents and purposes, 100% owned by myself. There were a couple of small shareholders, but it wasn't significant. The American organization, as they did, walked away from it and they lost nothing. So that's lesson number two. Make sure your other partners have skin in the game. Lesson number three, quite interesting. There's no substitute for committed and loyal staff. So despite the significant problems that we encountered, the small group of English managers and staff that I had in the organization, this organization, even after 12 to 14 months, was not massive. There was a team of maybe about 15 or 20 people. The small group of English managers were outstanding, truly, truly outstanding. They were committed, they were loyal, they worked, they tried to counteract the American influence, suffered the same degree of frustration that I did. And I think that if it had not been for them, we wouldn't have lasted quite so long. Now, that's a kind of a double-edged sword, because lasting quite so long meant that I was still hemorrhaging cash, but we were still being optimistic that we might be able to find our way out of it. We just ran out of